Hey everybody, welcome back. Today I'm going to do a review on this DeWalt DWS779 sliding compound miter saw. Talk about the things I like, dislike, anything I might change, some of the features, and whether or not I would recommend anybody else to buy this. If that sounds interesting, stick around. So this is the DWS779 by DeWalt. It is identical in every way to the DWS780. The 780 just has like a shadow line or a laser guide on it as well. This one does not have that feature, but personally, I can't rely on that. I don't trust it to make an accurate cut. But this is a 12-inch sliding compound miter saw. I went with this brand just because it had the wider capacity, and I like to put sometimes like a 2x12 up here, and I can easily cut through that. The capacity on the saw is right around 13 inches max. Now, if you're working with a thin sheet of plywood, you can go just a little outside that and kind of tip your board up a little bit, but about 13 would be a safe guesstimate if you want to leave it flat on your workpiece. That would be the safest bet as well. The capacity height-wise is around 4.5 inches out here. You can get a little bit taller if you're flat against the fence. Again, maybe 3/4. You can get more like 6 or 7 inches back there.
That's what she said.
All right, so bringing you in closer, give you a better look at the saw. What we have here is we have a 50-degree angle to the left and a 60-degree angle to the right. That would be your theoretical max angle capacity on this saw. Now you can take like a 45-degree jig and get a much steeper angle than that, but that is, I would use that with caution if you're not well versed in chop saw safety. We have a locking handle here to lock your saw in place once you get it to any degree, whatever your preferred angle is for the cut you're making. It does have positive stops in both directions for 0, 15, and let's see what else. I don't even remember. It's been so long. 22.5 and 31.6 degrees. You'll get that in both directions, as well as 45. Once you get where you're going, you can lock that down. I'm going to be honest with you, a feature I just learned today. If you need to adjust this, you have to hold this thumb knob down to adjust this. If you let go, it will catch on them indents. But if you're trying to make small adjustments and you're afraid it's going to jump into one of those positive stops, you can push this down and lift this, and that will lock that down. That will keep it from jumping into any of those indents. And then when you've got it where you want it, you can lock this and you can depress that to let that go again. Now this does have an adjustable fence. Each side has knobs on the back that you can loosen and move these in and out, which would be necessary if you were going to be making a beveled cut. If you don't do that, you're likely going to saw right through your fence. So we come over to the left side here, you can see this locking pin here, and this is to lock the carriage down in, I guess, what I would call a travel mode or a safety mode, I guess. I don't know. But once you push this down, you can slide that in, and when you let go, it'll stay in place. You can do essentially the same thing forward and backwards by twisting this knob in the back and tightening that down. That's also handy if you're basically making chop cuts, I'm sorry, if you're making cuts that are less than, let's say, 6 inches deep, you can lock it in that position, because at that point there's not much reason to be sliding the saw in and out. Now the handle is made of plastic. It is very durable feeling. It's very rugged. I've been using this for about 2 years without any issues. It does have a safety latch on the trigger. You cannot pull the trigger without pushing that safety latch to the left. I would say this is probably a little less left-handed friendly just because it is on the right side of the blade. If you are left-handed, you may be better suited for one of the pistol grip style chop saws. So this particular saw is a compound miter saw, which means that it will bevel as well as rotate. This particular one does bevel in both directions, 45 degrees. That can be adjusted with a knob on the back of the saw to any degree. There's no positive stops. It can be adjusted to any degree from 0 to 45 in either direction. So changing the blade on this is fairly simple. The tool is included, and there's a mounting spot on the back for this. One side is a hex key, one side is a Torx bit. To change the blade, you simply raise the guard up, and you have to loosen this screw here. What that does is allow the whole blade guard assembly to slide up out of the way a little bit further. Once you've got that out of the way, you can lock this down and then use this hex key to loosen that blade arbor nut, or bolt, sorry, arbor bolt. It is reverse threaded, so make sure to pay attention. They did emboss it on the side very well so you can see which way is. It's not lefty-loosey, guys. It's righty-loosey.
Righty-loosey, lefty-tighty.
That's actually one of my favorite things about this saw, is the fact that the blade is so simple to change. So this is the throat plate that comes with this. If you can see that, the gap there is pretty wide. Not quite as wide as your mom, but it's relatively wide. Now, normally, this is not a big issue. If you're cutting rough lumber, it's not a problem. If you're trying to use this outside of its intended purpose to do moderately fine woodworking, and you need to minimize tear out, this is not the throat plate for you. This may not be the saw for you. My initial fix for this was to buy a product, I believe Fast Cap makes it, and it's just a stick-on zero clearance insert for this. That does work, but it's still, it's so thin that it's flimsy, and it still allows some chip out to occur. So I found a guy online that made these zero clearance inserts, and I assume he's just cutting these out on a CNC, but you can replace your original throat plate with this. It has no cut in it, and then you can make your initial cut, and that will greatly reduce the amount of tear out you get to next to nothing. The only place you will still continue to get tear out is at the back of your cut, because there's no support for the back of your cut. The name of this company on the shipping label, at least, was Custom Fabricating Solutions. So you might be able to look them up on Etsy and find the company and buy some of your own. This, again, this saw is identical to the 780, so this same throat plate would work with the 780 as well. Where'd that DeWalt tool go I was just talking about? Saw it.
That was really stupid.
Now back to the fine woodworking example. This was designed to cut rough lumber. It was not designed to make furniture with. It was not designed to make heirlooms with. It was designed to rough cut lumber. It was mainly designed, I believe, for the DIYers, that's me, and contractors, because it's relatively easy to carry around. It's got a carry handle on the top. The problem I run into is if you are using this saw and you bring it out into a sliding cut, depending on how stable you are with your hand, I'm not very stable, I'm not going to lie. This has a decent amount of flex to it left and right. Now, I don't think this is any fault of the saw. I think this is just a symptom of how this type of sliding mechanism works. That's how most of the sliding mechanisms are, but they do have just a little bit of flex. You introduce that little bit of flex with the amount of deflection you can get off of a blade, and you can end up with a board that's slightly crooked. Most people can get around this, but like if I'm building a coffee table and I'm going to say, let's use some pocket joinery or some dowels to put things together, if those don't line up at exactly 90, it's going to make the piece off a square, and then it could potentially, if I try and force it to line up properly, it could make the table wobbly, and then I got to make all kinds of adjustments like on the feet of the table just to make it set straight. So that's my one minor complaint. And again, it's not a fault of this saw. It's just it's a contractor saw. That's what you get. All right, here's my last complaint, I promise. You can see I have some dust collection set up here. You can see there's a massive pile of dust here. That's because I have no dust collection for this saw. It does come with a dust collector chute. I have no idea what I did with it. I've got a shelf up here, and I'm sure it's sitting up there somewhere. What I can tell you is the included dust collection is atrocious. It does nothing. I mean, it picks up a little bit of dust, but it's basically useless. The other main issue I have with that particular dust collection, and again, I don't think it's a fault of this saw, it's a fault of this not being made to be in a workshop. The way they designed it to come through the back and out the back of the saw, it sticks out so far that this saw would have to be another 4 to 5 inches out from the wall, and it's already, I don't know, almost 2 feet out from the wall just to accommodate the sliding mechanism. So I'm in the process of buying a dust collection system for this. If anybody's heard of them, Shop Nation, they have a YouTube channel way bigger than mine, more than I could ever dream of, but they have a YouTube channel. They also have an Etsy shop. They created a version of dust collection specifically made for this saw that kind of fits up over the back here, and it picks up the majority of the dust. That's all I'm looking for. I'm in a workshop. I understand that there's going to be cleanup. That's part of it. But if I can minimize the amount of times I have to perform that cleanup, or the amount of time I spend for each cleanup, that's money well spent, in my opinion. The price on this saw right now, I believe, is right around $350, maybe $380, somewhere in that area. I've had this particular one for 2 years, and if this saw died, assuming I got several more years out of it, I believe I would buy it again. The caveat to that is whether or not I had transitioned into more actual fine woodworking. This saw does a better job than most any other saw I've had. I've had 3 or 4 other chop saws from various brands, Craftsman, Evolution. There was one other, I don't even remember the name of the other brand, but this one is the only one I've had that the motor does not feel like it's bogging down. It has the capacity that I want with a small trade-off of the deflection, but I can honestly work around that. Honestly, even though there's no DeWalt repair centers around me, my last interaction with DeWalt repair was phenomenal. Your mileage may vary though. It's hard to say. I've only ever had one interaction with them, but my interaction was pleasant. I would recommend this to any small workshop, anybody that wants to get out of the super budget line and get a lot more accuracy without jumping up to like a Festool and spending $1,000 or even $500 or $600 for like a high mid-level saw. I would not recommend this for a fine woodworking shop. You would be better suited with a nice table saw. Now you could definitely use this to rough cut your lumber as long as you knew that your final cuts would be made on something else. Well, that wraps it up for today, guys. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up or don't. It's up to you. You're the boss. And I will catch you on the next one. See ya.